Day 66, Judges 1 through 4. Israel fight the remaining Canaanite. 1. Israel fight the remaining Canaanite. 2. The angel of the Lord at Bochim. Disobedience and defeat. 3. Othniel, Ehud, Shamgar. 4. Devote. Chapter 1 and 2. God appoints service according to the strength he has given. Verse 2. But distrust of his power and promise loot for us our advantages and run us into 1,000 troubles. God never designed defeat for his own. Let them be faithful to him, and they will find him unchangeably constant to them. His covenant never break except on our side.
The Book of Judges, Chapter 1. It happened after the death of Joshua, the children of Israel asked of the Lord, saying, Who shall go up for us first against the Canaanites to fight against them? The Lord said, Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand. Judah said to Simeon his brother, Come up with me into my lot, that we may fight against the Canaanites, and I likewise will go with you into your lot. So Simeon went with him. Judah went up, and the Lord delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand, and they struck of them in Bezek 10,000 men. They found Adonibezek in Bezek, and they fought against him, and they struck the Canaanites and the Perizzites. But Adonibezek fled, and they pursued after him and caught him, and cut off his thumbs and his great toes. Adonibezek said, 70 kings, having their thumbs and their great toes cut off, gathered their food under my table. As I have done, so God has requited me. They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. The children of Judah fought against Jerusalem and took it, and struck it with the edge of the sword, and set the city on fire. Afterward the children of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites who lived in the hill country and in the south, and in the lowland. Judah went against the Canaanites who lived in Hebron. Now the name of Hebron before was Kiriath-arba. And they struck Sheshai, and Ammon, and Talmai. From there he went against the inhabitants of Debir. Now the name of Debir before was Kiriath-Shepher. Caleb said, He who strikes Kiriath-Shepher, and takes it, to him will I give Achsah my daughter as wife. Othniel the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took it, and he gave him Achsah his daughter as a wife. It happened, when she came to him, that she moved him to ask of her father a field, and she alighted from off her donkey, and Caleb said to her, What do you want? She said to him, Give me a blessing, for that you have set me in the land of the south, give me also springs of water. Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. The children of the Kenite, Moses' brother-in-law, went up out of the city of palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which is in the south of Arad, and they went and lived with the people. Judah went with Simeon his brother, and they struck the Canaanites who inhabited Zephath, and utterly destroyed it. The name of the city was called Hormah. Judah also took Gaza with its border, and Ashkelon with its border, and Ekron with its border. The Lord was with Judah, and drove out the inhabitants of the hill country, for he could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. They gave Hebron to Caleb, as Moses had spoken, and he drove out there the 3 sons of Anak. The children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites who inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. The house of Joseph, they also went up against Bethel, and the Lord was with them. The house of Joseph sent to spy out Bethel. Now the name of the city before was Luz. The watchers saw a man come forth out of the city, and they said to him, Show us, we pray you, the entrance into the city, and we will deal kindly with you. He showed them the entrance into the city, and they struck the city with the edge of the sword, but they let the man go and all his family. The man went into the land of the Hittites and built a city, and called the name of it Luz, which is the name of it to this day. Manasseh did not drive out the inhabitants of Bethshean and its towns, nor of Tanakh and its towns, nor the inhabitants of Dor and its towns, nor the inhabitants of Ibleam and its towns, nor the inhabitants of Megiddo and its towns, but the Canaanites would dwell in that land. It happened, when Israel had grown strong, that they put the Canaanites to forced labor, and did not utterly drive them out. Ephraim didn't drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer, but the Canaanites lived in Gezer among them. Zebulun didn't drive out the inhabitants of Kitron, nor the inhabitants of Nahalol, but the Canaanites lived among them and became subject to forced labor. Asher didn't drive out the inhabitants of Akko, nor the inhabitants of Sidon, nor of Alab, nor of Akzib, nor of Helbah, nor of Aphik, nor of Rehob. But the Asherites lived among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, for they did not drive them out. Naphtali didn't drive out the inhabitants of Beth-Shemesh, nor the inhabitants of Beth-Anath, but he lived among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land. Nevertheless, the inhabitants of Beth-Shemesh and of Beth-Anath became subject to forced labor. The Amorites forced the children of Dan into the hill country, for they would not allow them to come down into the valley. But the Amorites would dwell in Mount Heres, in Ajalon, and in Shaalbim. Yet the hand of the house of Joseph prevailed, so that they became subject to forced labor. The border of the Amorites was from the ascent of Akrabim, from the rock and upward. Chapter 2. The angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochum. He said, I made you to go up out of Egypt, and have brought you to the land which I swore to your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You shall break down their altars. But you have not listened to my voice. Why have you done this? Therefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare to you. It happened, when the angel of the Lord spoke these words to all the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept. They called the name of that place Bochum, and they sacrificed there to the Lord. Now when Joshua had sent the people away, the children of Israel went every man to his inheritance to possess the land. The people served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great work of the Lord that he had worked for Israel. Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. They buried him in the border of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, on the north of the mountain of Gash. Also all that generation were gathered to their fathers, and there arose another generation after them, who didn't know the Lord, nor yet the work which he had done for Israel. The children of Israel did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, and served the Baals, and they forsook the Lord, the God of their fathers, who brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods, of the gods of the people who were round about them, and bowed themselves down to them, and they provoked the Lord to anger. They forsook the Lord, and served Baal and the Ashtaroth. The anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of spoilers who despoiled them, and he sold them into the hands of their enemies round about, so that they could no longer stand before their enemies. Wherever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil, as the Lord had spoken, and as the Lord had sworn to them, and they were very distressed. The Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hand of those who despoiled them. Yet they didn't listen to their judges, for they played the prostitute after other gods, and bowed themselves down to them. They turned aside quickly out of the way in which their fathers walked, obeying the commandments of the Lord, but they didn't do so. When the Lord raised them up judges, then the Lord was with the judge, and saved them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For it grieved the Lord because of their groaning, by reason of those who oppressed them and vexed them. But it happened, when the judge was dead, that they turned back, and dealt more corruptly than their fathers, in following other gods to serve them, and to bow down to them. They didn't cease from their doings, nor from their stubborn way. The anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he said, Because this nation has transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and have not listened to my voice, I also will not henceforth drive out from before them any of the nations that Joshua left when he died, that by them I may prove Israel, whether they will keep the way of the Lord to walk in it, as their fathers did keep it, or not. So the Lord left those nations, without driving them out hastily, neither delivered he them into the hand of Joshua. Chapter 3. Now these are the nations which the Lord left, to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan, only that the generations of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war, at the least such as before knew nothing of it, namely, the 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites, who lived on Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal-Hamon to the entrance of Hamath. They were left, to prove Israel by them, to know whether they would listen to the commandments of the Lord, after he commanded their fathers by Moses. The children of Israel lived among the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their own daughters to their sons, and served their gods. The children of Israel did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, and forgot their God, and served the Baals and the Ashtaroth. Therefore the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. And the children of Israel served Cushan-Rishathaim 8 years. When the children of Israel cried to the Lord raised up a Savior to the children of Israel who saved them, even Othniel the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. The Spirit of the Lord came on him, and he judged Israel, and he went out to war. And the Lord delivered Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand, and his hand prevailed against Cushan-Rishathaim. The land had rest 40 years. Othniel the son of Kenaz died. The children of Israel again did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord strengthened Eglon the king of Moab against Israel, because they had done that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He gathered to him the children of Ammon and Amalek, and he went and struck Israel, and they possessed the city of palm trees. The children of Israel served Eglon the king of Moab 18 years. But when the children of Israel cried to the Lord raised them up a Savior, Ehud the son of Gera, the Benjamite, a left-handed man. The children of Israel sent tribute by him to Eglon the king of Moab. Ehud made him a sword which had 2 edges, a cubit in length, and he girded it under his clothing on his right thigh. He offered the tribute to Eglon the king of Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man. When he made an end of offering the tribute, he sent away the people who bore the tribute. But he himself turned back from the quarries that were by Gilgal and said, I have a secret errand to you, king. He said, Keep silence. All who stood by him went out from him. Ehud came to him, and he was sitting by himself alone in the cool upper room. Ehud said, I have a message from God to you. He arose out of his seat. Ehud put forth his left hand, and took the sword from his right thigh, and thrust it into his body, and the shaft also went in after the blade, and the fat closed on the blade, for he didn't draw the sword out of his body, and it came out behind. Then Ehud went forth into the porch, and shut the doors of the upper room on him, and locked them. Now when he was gone out, his servants came, and they saw, and behold, the doors of the upper room were locked, and they said, Surely he is covering his feet in the upper chamber. They waited until they were ashamed, and behold, he didn't open the doors of the upper room. Therefore they took the key and opened them, and behold, their lord was fallen down dead on the earth. Ehud escaped while they waited, and passed beyond the quarries, and escaped to Sarah. It happened when he had come, that he blew a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the hill country, and he before them. He said to them, Follow after me, for the Lord has delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand. They went down after him, and took the fords of the Jordan against the Moabites, and didn't allow a man to pass over. They struck of Moab at that time about 10,000 men, every brave man and every man of valor, and there escaped not a man. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel. The land had rest 80 years. After him was Shamgar the son of Anath, who struck of the Philistines 600 men with an ox goad, and he also saved Israel. Chapter 4. The children of Israel again did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord when Ehud was dead. The Lord sold him into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth of the Gentiles. The children of Israel cried to the Lord, for he had 900 chariots of iron, and 20 years he mightily oppressed the children of Israel. Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, She judged Israel at that time. She lived under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the children of Israel came up to her for judgment. She sent and called Barak the son of Abinoam out of Kadesh Naphtali, and said to him, Hasn't the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded, saying, Go and draw to Mount Tabor, and take with you 10,000 men of the children of Naphtali and of the children of Zebulun? I will draw to you, to the river Kishon, Sisera, the captain of Jabin's army, with his chariots and with his multitude, and I will deliver him into your hand. Barak said to her, If you will go with me, then I will go, but if you will not go with me, I will not go. She said, I will surely go with you. Notwithstanding, the journey that you take shall not be for your honor, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali together to Kadesh, and there went up 10,000 men at his feet, and Deborah went up with him. Now Heber the Kenite had separated himself from the Kenites, even from the children of Hobab, the brother-in-law of Moses, and had pitched his tent as far as the oak in Zanaim, which is by Kadesh. They told Sisera that Barak the son of Abinoam was gone up to Mount Tabor. Sisera gathered together all his chariots, even 900 chariots of iron, and all the people who were with him, from Harosheth of the Gentiles to the river Kishon. Deborah said to Barak, Rise up, for this is the day in which the Lord has delivered Sisera into your hand. Hasn't the Lord gone out before you? So Barak went down from Mount Tabor, and 10,000 men after him. The Lord confused Sisera and all his chariots and all his host with the edge of the sword before Barak, and Sisera alighted from his chariot and fled away on his feet. But Barak pursued after the chariots and after the host to Harosheth of the Gentiles, and all the host of Sisera fell by the edge of the sword. There was not a man left. However, Sisera fled away on his feet to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. For there was peace between Jabin the king of Hazor and the house of Heber the Kenite. Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, Turn in, my lord, turn in to me, and don't be afraid. He came into her tent, and she covered him with a rug. He said to her, Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. She opened a bottle of milk and gave him drink and covered him. He said to her, Stand in the door of the tent, and it shall be when any man does come and inquire of you and say, Is there any man here? That you shall say no. Then Jael, Heber's wife, took a tent pin, and took a hammer in her hand, and went softly to him, and struck the pin into his temples, and it pierced through into the ground, for he was in a deep sleep. So he swooned and died. Behold, as Barak pursued Sisera, Jael came out to meet him, and said to him, Come, and I will show you the man whom you seek. He came to her, and behold, Sisera lay dead, and the tent peg was in his temples. So God subdued that day Jabin the king of Canaan before the children of Israel. The hand of the children of Israel prevailed more and more against Jabin the king of Canaan, until they had destroyed Jabin king of Canaan.